Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Max and TV. I'm your host, Max Landisman. We got a great show for you tonight. We have here exclusively on Max and TV, Sloan Dean, President and CEO of Remington Hotels. They are a top 10 hotel management company in the country. Just to give you a little bit of a background, for you to understand it, and Sloan will give you more detail as to exactly how Remington operates and everything that they're included in. In 2002, Remington was actually an owner-operator of hotels. However, a year later, they were spun off into a REIT called Ashford Hospitality Trust, which own 119 hotels to date with 8 different management companies. Fast forward 10 years, 2013, they spun off for a second REIT called Braemar Hotels Resorts. Those are for exclusively very, very luxurious hotels and resorts. They currently own 13 of them. And so they also form a company called Ashford Incorporated. Ashford Incorporated is essentially an advisor to both of those REITs, in addition to owning a bunch of other companies under them. For example, as of note, they own OpenKey, which is a new technology to help guests essentially check in to a hotel and actually access their hotel rooms via a mobile phone, as opposed to actually checking in at the front desk with a physical key card. It's very interesting and very innovative. They own also Red Hospitality and Leisure. They are a leading water sports provider. And 3, they also own a company called Pure Rooms, which is a company that turns hotel rooms to become hypoallergenic. They currently have contracts with 207 hotels, which equal 2,900 rooms. And so to fast forward all the way up to 2019, that's when they acquired Remington Hotels as a management company, and through that transaction, they made Sloan Dean president and CEO of that company. This company does roughly $1 billion a year. And again, this is one of the top hotel management companies in the country. They manage 80 hotels for both of those REITs. They manage the most amount of hotels out of the 8 different management companies. Number 2 was Marriott. And so, of note, of the notable hotels that they manage one is the World Quest Orlando Resort. The second hotel is somewhere that I've actually personally stayed in, which is the Embassy Suites in New York City, Times Square. Excellent hotel. Another one, which I do know pretty well as well, is the Marriott Beverly Hills near Pico, right off of Pico. I've been there a million times, have passed by that hotel a lot. And last but not least, the Hilton in Boston Back Bay, which looks absolutely stunning. It's right on Dalton Street, which is it's a 14-minute walk away from Fenway Park, those of you who are baseball fans. So they essentially manage roughly 80 hotels, with 8 different capital partners, 27 states. They manage between 15 and 17,000 rooms. You're a big operation, and as big of an operation as it is, one thing that's really remarkable is, especially at your level of when you get to $1 billion company, to focus on to really focus on its people is really admirable. Sloan actually has weekly Zoom calls with anybody in the company that wants to ask any questions or anything. So essentially, whoever works in the company can actually ask them a question. That's very rare. I don't think I've ever seen that done before. It's very admirable again. And you're gonna learn a lot in this interview, and I hope you guys take something out of it, and I hope you guys enjoy. Take it easy. So I have your Sloan Dean, CEO of Remington Hotels. Sloan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, of course. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Number one, what's it like to have 2 last names?
You get called Dean a lot.
That's true.
You could say, what's it like having 2 first names?
That's true too. I'm a twin brother, so literally I've been treated as a half a person my entire life. So I get questioned all the time. Wait, you're a twin, So anyways, yeah. So Remington Hotels, obviously very big third-party management company in the hospitality industry. You were recently acquired by Ashford, publicly traded company. Can you do a little bit? I don't really understand how the whole dynamic works. There's a lot of different moving parts. I'm sure from the time we started this interview to the time we finished, you probably acquired 17 more companies by then. So maybe you can give the lay of the land here.
Yeah, so I'll try and be brief. So if you rewind the tape to 2002, all that existed was Remington. We were an owner operator. And so in 2003, the ownership was spun off into a REIT called Ashford Hospitality Trust. Then fast forward to 2013, the second REIT, Braemar Hotels and Resorts, was IPO'd out of trust. And then there were two public platforms. Then a couple of years later, Ashford Inc., which is a small cap C Corp, was spun out of both of the REITs. And Ashford Inc. externally advises the two publicly traded REITs. So Ashford Hospitality Trust owns 119 hotels. They have 8 different management companies. Braemar Hotels and Resorts owns 13, all luxury. And Ashford Inc. is the advisor to both of those. Ashford Inc.'s primary income stream outside of its sub-businesses that it owns is it draws a percentage of an asset management fee for percentage of assets under management. They get paid a fee to effectively do all the advisory, accounting, asset management work for both Ashford and Braemar. And quite frankly, they could go do that for other owners if they so chose to do that for profit, similar to some other private professional asset management firms. Now then, Ashford Inc. in 2018 acquired Premier Project Management for $203 million. They're a sister firm, wholly owned subsidiary. They're run very separately, and they do, renovation construction work, mostly in hospitality, but they do multifamily. They've also done some commercial and are looking at doing some industrial work. And then in November of 2019, Ashford Inc. acquired Remington Hotels. As part of that transaction, I was made CEO and president, and they acquired us for $275 million. So now in today's form, Ashford Inc. advises the two public REITs, gets paid to do so. They then wholly own Remington Hotels, which is a management company, and we manage about 80 hotels for the two REITs, and then the two REITs have 7 other management companies they utilize as well. Marriott is the second biggest manager behind Remington. Then they own Premier Project Management. They own JSAV Audio, which is the #2 audiovisual company behind PSAV. They then own OpenKey, which you maybe have read about, mobile check-in company. They own Pure Rooms. They own Red Hospitality, which is a water sports company. And then they own 3 or 4 other businesses, most of which you probably haven't heard of. And so it is really the investment thesis is to own the entire vertical stack of hospitality all along the way. And so that's, and I obviously run the biggest service business in Remington in that we manage 87 hotels for 8 different capital partners and are looking to grow our third-party business pretty handsomely. So hopefully that clarifies. I think that was more like 4 minutes, 5 minutes, but clear.
Not easy to do, trust me. It's not easy to do. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. So does that make a little more sense?
It does. It does a lot. What do you think is what's the benefit of separating? Like, why not just keep it under one umbrella and everyone just kind of be one big happy family? Why does everything have to be so separate?
Well, for the management company to be publicly held, REITs and lodging can't self-manage.
Got you.
So you had to create, if Remington was to ever be publicly held, unless it did its own IPO, hypothetically, like Interstate did back in the day, you have to have, some type of C Corp or other structure to own that. Also, there's a lot of businesses that, Ashford wanted to invest in that they quite frankly can't just as a REIT structure. I mean, OpenKey is a great venture capital play with the mobile check-in company, and you just can't do that under a REIT structure. And that's why that you need a different structure besides the 2 REIT platforms to make these great investments in businesses, service businesses, technology businesses that just don't fit. And so that's why there has to be some separation.
That makes a lot of sense. So when you talk a lot about technology, obviously, OpenKey. So the name of the game is to actually own all of the services you need in a hotel. Is that the name of the game?
I think that ultimately, I think we have looked at some services where the margins are not very good, or it's a declining business, or it's capital intensive. I'll give you a very good example. I think early on we looked at, parking companies and possibly acquiring one. And the challenges in Uber pre-COVID, park driving rates have been on the decline for several years. You don't want to buy a business where the revenue is doing this.
Right.
And so you may have some fixed lease payments and fixed liabilities that really aren't that attractive. And a lot of your parking companies actually have a good bit of debt. So I think that's probably a category of the business, just using it as an example, that we won't ever control or own. We'll continue to partner with. We have a relationship with Town Park, AAA, ACE, LAS, and down the line. We also run in-house operations. So you won't see us starting a parking company anytime soon. So will be businesses that it still makes sense for us to not be in. But yeah, that is effectively the idea, is to own all parts of the business and monetize all parts of the business. And effectively, if you can give better margin back to the REITs, they benefit too, because you're giving them a better deal.
100%. Listen, at the end of the day, a hotel's always going to need essentials, toilet paper, so like stuff that you're always going to need. If you can keep your cost at the low, at cost, literally at cost forever, genius. No, it's that's actually brilliant. I've never actually heard someone be doing that. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I do know
it's common in other industries. We're the only one that exists in hotels.
Right.
It's actually, I've seen it in medical. We have large hospital organizations that control various parts of the medical experience.
Right.
Monetize it all along the way. And so there's examples outside of the industry, but definitely in hospitality, it's rare.
Yeah, my brother works for Centers Healthcare. They're a really big nursing home facility, and they own that. They third party manage a bunch of others, but they also own the ambulances. Like, people need to get transferred, they own that. They own everything. They essentially own everything.
Right.
That's brilliant. So in terms of technology, I know obviously you probably can't say everything of what you see. It might be preliminary. You don't want to give out your secrets. But is there anything on the horizon maybe you could share or something?
Well, I think there's no rocket science to it. I think all the brands have had a technology solution. Our parent company owns OpenKey, which is the most prominent non-brand. I think mobile check-in and how much you have to staff a front desk will forever be declined, right? It's cheaper. Customers often like it. It's like the Uber experience of checking into a hotel, and it's contactless, right? You don't have to go up and speak to somebody. You don't have to get a physical key. It's on your phone. You've seen the mobile adoption in airline industry pretty heavily. Right. So that's a given that this will be only an Excel. And we've seen that mobile key adoption it's been exponential through COVID. And I think coming out of this mobile key and in larger hotels, how you revise, how you staff front desk during peak times, because maybe now half your guests are using mobile key direct room, is going to be forever changed. So I think the front desk experience, check-in experience is first and foremost. And a lot of the physical locks are already in place to be able to make that happen.
Right.
I think secondarily, I think you're going to see, and this will take time because it requires a lot of CapEx investment, but there's already a lot of hotels making an IoT investment in the hotel room itself to make the experience more unique, customizable. So you check in and your temperature's already set. You can control the TV from your smartphone. You can control lighting. And I think that there will be a contactless justification for that as well. And you're going to start to see in brand standards, as well as new hotels, where there's a lot more IoT in the room, not simply from an energy conservation justification, but from a customer preference justification. So I think we're going to continue to see smarter hotel rooms, but it's going to take us a decade, because there's a lot of economy, mid-scale, older hotels that a lot of that to retrofit a non-new hotel is expensive. And so I think that will be something that will play out over many cycles of renovations, many cycles but I think 10 years from now, we'll see a lot more smart rooms in the hotel. And then the third thing that I think will be, the third and fourth would be Third will be a modification to housekeeping. I think what's going to start with you're already seeing is there won't be housekeeping every day, that it'll be electable and stay overs if you're staying more than one night. I think secondarily, there's a lot of technology being looked at for automation of housekeeping. So, can robots do certain things? You have some hotels like the Hilton Beverly Hills has bought robots that do UV light throughout the public space and just roams around and sterilizes. Challenge with that is we look at that robot's like $100,000 per. So
Wow.
as the cost comes down, I think what you'll end up seeing is a lot of kind of robot automation of cleaning of public areas in big hotels, big convention centers. Whether or not it's economical for a select service hotel, maybe not. We'll see over time what happens there. And then the fourth, I think, is going to be a modification of food and beverage. And what does that do to bars, restaurants, and hotels? You're going to see more grab and goes. You're going to see heavier bar, less food. I think, quite frankly, that's a good thing, because if you look at F&B in hotels today, in a lot of hotels, it's a loss leader. It's I need this to be able to get people into the hotel rooms. But in a lot of full-service hotel restaurants, it's the name of the game is don't lose money. And so if we're going to be more profitable at lower occupancy, we're going to have modified food and beverage. So it's going to move to a B&F, not a F&B. And a lot of the food concepting is going to be, I think you're going to see a lot more grab and go, a lot more mobile order and pay throughout. And so those are kind of top of mind. I'm sure there will be others that I'm not necessarily, but there'll be a reversion to the norm too. I think human nature and over history, we've had pandemics before. We just never had one in this generation, right? So over a 2 or 3 year period, once we have a vaccination, once the case count over a 12 to 18 month period comes down, I think you will see a reversion, and we'll slip back into some things in, call it 2022. But the good thing is when there's strain as extreme as this, is it does push for change, and some of the change can be positive.
Right. Do you see, when you're referring to housekeeping to put off a day, maybe, do you see, if you're in, you guys do like a lot of like very luxurious hotels, right? Like there's a certain clientele that they're going to want their bed made every day. Do you see that as a problem, or you think that they're,
I think that's a little bit of a misnomer. That was my assumption too. And we've tried it at a few hotels and haven't gotten a lot of negative pushback. Now, I don't know. When you modify your standard in the middle of a crisis, the customer gives you the benefit of the doubt, right?
Right.
So it's kind of, once the vaccine's in place, once it's under control, people are going to be pissed off when they check in and somebody's talking to them through a mask.
Right.
Right now, it's just a lower expectation.
Right.
So I can't, but our guest satisfaction has not dipped in luxury hotels where we've made it as electability. And I'm curious over time if your hypothesis is right. I think that's something we're going to have to test and see if we want to continue to extend, if you're staying 3 nights, you only get housekeeping upon check-in unless you either request it or want to pay for it. Does that become a big dissatisfier once we're on the other side of the side? Right now, the data tells us it's not, but I don't know, like I said, if it's the benefit of the doubt that they realize it's a pandemic.
Yeah.
They don't even want somebody coming in the room, right? They don't want a stranger who may have COVID. And then, so that's a point. And then, but long term, we'll see. I think you're right that the luxury and upper upscale segment, what happens there, it's kind of like on a first class ticket, and
it's like a totally different customer.
Wise pound, foolish me, don't nickel and dime me for everything. So
yeah, that's awesome. And so in terms of like the robots, it sounded more like it was more mainstream, like it does big areas, but like is the technology out there, like they can make your bed, or like it's just something that
not yet. There's technology that can do basically sterilization of big, large areas, vacuuming, even into tight corners, and dusting. So, if you're talking about a deep clean in a bathroom, you're talking about picking up various linen in various areas and stripping and making beds. No, I have yet to see robotics that's that complex.
Right.
But for sure, if all of a sudden you got a robot that's working in tandem with housekeeping and doing all the vacuuming, dusting, cleaning, and just sterilizing public areas, it's not like you're going to eliminate housekeeping departments. You just, there'll be a little bit of a consolidation. And maybe your housekeeping staff for a big full service hotel arguably was 100. Now it's maybe 70 plus supplemented by robots. I think that's what you're going to see is supplementing. Same thing with front desk. I think in 10 years, you will see some hotels that won't necessarily have front desk at all. And it'll be, hey, mobile key is the only option we have. But right now, I think it'll be a hybrid. And what we've witnessed is we haven't gotten to a saturation point in most hotels where you can decline or decrease your front desk staffing dramatically, but because we staff it based off of occupancy, but it's brought down the waiting periods and improved the satisfaction during heavy check-in times. So instead of having to flex up to 12, 14 people at front desk during peak time, you can keep it at 6, because 30% are using mobile key. So that the typical is the Friday check-in for the weekender, right? A lot of them are walking their room and don't have these long lines. So I think that's what you're seeing first. Eventually, though, I think it will decline. It will decrease the number of front desk jobs that exist.
Right. Especially with I'm sure you have a lot of business clients. They just want to, they check in every week. They just want to check in and that's it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not necessarily, I did 120,000 miles last year.
Wow.
I love talking to people. If I'm going to my hotel, I stop and talk to the front desk. But I'm going to a conference, I'm not staying at one of our hotels. Yeah, I'm one of the, I may just want to go right up to the room, grab a quick shower before dinner. And, I don't necessarily need to interact with somebody. So I think that's a good example.
Yeah. I do see you post a lot on LinkedIn. You're in a different hotel every 30 seconds or whatever. Does it take a toll on you? I mean, it's a lot, I don't know.
I think it does. I think it less so personally as it does on your personal life. I've got 3 kids, and I think being a young CEO who's running a travel company and has to travel a lot, the biggest thing is what you sacrifice personally. And my kids it's a delicate dance, and as they're getting older, they're 8, 6, 4. I'm trying to balance it more, but for sure, I think that's the hardest part. My advice to any young executive who travels a lot is develop a routine. Make sure you're working out and getting at least 6 hours of sleep. So those are kind of 2 things that I don't bend on, and I think it helps you maintain some sanity. So anyways, but yeah, it's not easy, and there's a lot of people that do it. And I think, making sure you're taking care of yourself physically is a big part of it.
I was telling Greg, I'm like, you look like a very young guy. Like, I was making fun of myself. I look like I look like I'm 10. Apparently, I had a full beard, but when you interview Sloan Dean and Greg Friedman, you shave, period. You get yourself right. I shaved twice today already.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, Greg's a young looking guy. So I know Greg. I think he may be a little older than me if I have to call him out a little bit. I think, you're seeing it across the board. You're seeing executives at a younger age. You're seeing sports coaches at a younger age, right? I mean,
that's right.
I think aptitude has a lot to do in today's world. You surround yourself with good people. I mean, my COO has been in the business for 35 years. So just say, listen, he's the best operator in the company. I'm just the kind of communicative, strategic leader. So, I don't try to profess that I know operations better than him. And so I think that as a young executive, that's what you do. You fill in the gaps of what you don't have. It's
right.
I've been in the business for 30, 35 years. But the other thing too, I think being young, you can relate to both generations, right? Millennial and then baby boomers. So you're kind of in the middle, which helps from a leadership perspective. Which I think often gets forgotten about if you're an older executive, relatability and motivation. And the second thing is, you don't rely on intuition. You don't rely on, well, I've done this before, which frankly gives you a false positive a lot in business. People quick to react, oh, I've seen this situation before. Well, nobody's seen COVID. And so what happened in our situation, I overreacted because our chairman likes to say, if you're going to panic early. And so we, by the first few days in March, we were already in the crisis mode, already looking at plans. And by the time I talked to a lot of competitors, they haven't even thought about it. And then fast forward 3 weeks later, all hell had broken loose. And so I think part of that was just simply the fact that all I did was look at the data in China and Italy and say, guys, listen, 2 weeks, we're going to be here. Let's go ahead and start moving. Can't wait. And, you know, we had curbed all our food offerings by the 13th of March across the board. And, you know, a lot of our brands didn't, you know, Hilton and Marriott didn't even necessarily move that fast. So I think that's actually a benefit of new leaders, is that you don't just, and, you know, you can manage better through things that just haven't happened. I also think it brings a creativity to the business that, well, we've done things that way. Well, we can do it better, or reinventing things. And so I try to bring that perspective too. And I think age has partly to do with it. The lastly thing I'd say about being a young executive is you quite frankly have more stamina and you're younger, right? So if you need to work 14 hours a day, it's physically easier. I think people forget about that. It's just like being an athlete. You know, if you're in good shape and you're younger, it's easier for you to take more stress, more load. And so, you know, to what you were talking about, from to be able to do what I do, if I was 60 and out of shape, I don't think I would be able to do it. And so I think that's sometimes, you know, I've even talked about the correlation between fitness and success. And, you know, I think you're seeing that with, you know, a lot more younger executives.
Right. And so also just pinpointing on one more thing about technology. I do speak to one person I do speak to, his name is C. Sloman. I speak to him quite often. He was a former chief operating officer of Best Western. He runs Sloan Hospitality now. We talk all the time about specifically food innovation. Like you guys have restaurants and things, automation, things. Have you seen anything also? Has that been discussed?
I think this is forcing the hand of the hotel industry. Unfortunately, outside of leased operations, hotels have been very slow to innovate in food and beverage. Yes, they eliminated in-room dining because it was, you know, a huge loss for a lot of hotels, particularly if you had union labor. But there's not been an evolution of the experience. And I think this is forcing that. You're seeing a lot more menu redesign, a lot more new concepting. I think you're going to have a lot of reimagined spaces. Like I said, I think there's going to be an even bigger emphasis on bar. And hopefully that leads to more profitability for hotels.
Right.
And I think we're in the experimental discovery phase now. And you're going to start to see it play out in brand standards and in renovation changes and space changes, you know, that you'll see a lot of hotels repurpose their large restaurants for other things.
Right. One thing you know, a couple of years ago, one thing I never got to experience was I was never a waiter, and I never got to work in a hotel, and I always wanted to do those two things. So that's exactly what I did. I worked at a hotel and I was in their food and beverage area. When I was there, I really wanted to learn every single thing about hotel operations. And you're 100% right. They're losing money left and right. It's not even a question.
Yeah, I would argue the majority of large restaurants in hotels that are operated by hotels are break even or money losers, particularly if they're running if they're running all 3 meal periods.
Right. So the number one thing actually is what I really admire about you guys. Actually, take care of your people. Very similar to the Southwest model. Take care of your people. You'll take care of the customer. As much as others, you know, say it once in a while, they don't mean it. They're full of garbage. Like, I feel like you guys are legit. I mean, you put it as your number one thing, which is something very admirable about. That's amazing. And I think is that one of the things that really differentiates you? Because hospitality in general is big turnover, but if you can eliminate, you can be a step up above everybody. Right?
Yeah, if you don't have culture, you don't have anything. And that's the key differentiator. You know, everybody says, well, we're the biggest, or we have the most market share, or we make the most money. You'll be overtaken at some point, even if you have the best technology, right, or the biggest market cap. Those things come and go. I mean, if you look at the Fortune 500, you read Jim Collins' books, and even the Good to Great, a lot of those companies now are non-existent. And culture is, you know, a key differentiator. And particularly in a business where a lot of institutions looks at third-party hotel management is the commoditization. So how are you going to differentiate?
Right.
And ultimately where we landed, and I actually hired a branding company when I came on 2.5 years ago, was we wanted to be the place where passionate people thrive. And passion is very intentional because it means we're not for everybody. You know, we run leaner, we're meaner, we promote within, but we ask a lot of our people. And at the same time, we ask a lot of our owners and our partners. And then thrive means that it's not one quarter, it's not being penny wise, pound foolish for a year, it's for a long time. It means being successful for a long time. And it, you know, it really, that it defines who we are. And I think this crisis has brought that out in us. You know, Remington as an organization, the number one thing we've done is we've every week since the second week of March, we've hosted bi-weekly webcasts for every single associate. I host it with our COO and our head of HR. We've never missed a week. We've never missed a webcast. And some of them have gone as long as 2 hours. Where we get on, it's Zoom, thousands of people. Some of them really pissed off because they're furloughed. And we give an update on the company, our hotels, what we're seeing in the industry, you know, kind of forecast. And then we take Q&A. And, you know, some of them are really, you know, quite frankly, I've gotten some absolute barn burners.
Wow.
We read them and we don't sanitize them. And I think we have gotten, our Glassdoor rating has gone up 0.2 since the crisis. Up to from actually, I think it got up to 4.3. It's back down to 4.2. So we're the highest rated hospitality company in North America, higher than Hilton. And, you know, I hear even like Marriott and Hilton are phenomenal employers, but for their furloughed associates, they furlough and give them a date, and they may not talk to them for a month or two.
Right.
And they're out there and they're just wondering. And humans are iterative. You need to have iterative, frequent communication, even if it's the same thing.
Right.
You see that in politics. You see that in media. If you want, you know, Jack Welch used to say, I would say something to the point of nauseum, and finally the organization would get it. And so I think that's the number one thing we've done. I get on those. I remember a moment in June where it was very obvious that we weren't recovering fast enough. And I was asked the question about the thousands of associates that were on furlough. And I very matter of fact said, the majority of folks that were dated early August are going to be in two categories. It's going to be, you're going to be extended or you're going to be let go. And I was asked, well, should I be looking for a job? And I told everyone on there, I said, as distasteful as it is, everyone who's on furlough should be actively looking for employment. Even though they're employed with us currently, technically, because we're paying for all their benefits. And I didn't know, I still, you know, and now we're in early August, it was that outcome. But, you know, we were candid and honest with them, even if it was bad news. And I think humans can take bad news. They just don't like surprises.
Right. That's the number one
you can
thing.
take the surprise out in this crisis. People will remember that. And I've written handwritten letters, phone calls from dozens of associates that were laid off that literally said, thank you. And I don't profess to be God's gift to communication. It literally is just showing up. You show up every week. And if you're willing to take some fastballs, people appreciate it. And I think that's, I haven't seen any other company that is doing that frequent of webcast and addressing. And I think that has made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, it's very rare. This is the first time I heard of it, especially at your site. You guys have thousands of employees to just get on a Zoom and like, here's the floor, the CEO's right there. You want to ask him a question? Like where do you see, you don't see that, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like going to church, you know, if you're, you know, it's iterative and it's got to be consistent, frequent. And, you know, I've heard from other CEOs, well, I don't have any news. Well, get on there anyways. Talk to your people. You've got, I mean, all these companies have thousands of furloughed people. Well, they don't want to get on and give them false hope or give them, you know, or maybe they don't even have any news. Well, just tell them that, you know, I don't know anything new. I hope you guys are doing well. I want to check in with you. Here's what occupancy looks like. This is what the forecast looks like. That just goes so far. And you're dealing with people who are on unemployment, the unemployment benefits burning down into July, and then the executive order extended it to 400 instead of 600. And, you know, they're coming up to a point where they don't know if they're going to make rent. So, you know, for a CEO to take 2 hours a week, every week, to simply get out in front, I think it's, you know, such an easy thing to do, quite frankly.
Right. You probably know this already, but I looked this up. Apparently you have a 90% approval rating, which is insane. That's insane. Like
Well,
M&Ms are
89.
What?
We'll see what time brings. I'm a big believer in that you have to, it's like running a marathon. So
right.
I appreciate that. But you know, far from done.
Oh, of course, for sure. I mean, you're pushing the guns. That's kind of, you know, that's what makes you know? So one of the things here, I saw it, you listed top 25 most extraordinary minds in sales and marketing. What is that specifically just driving revenue for a hotel, or is that something else? Or
yeah, that's an award that HSMAI puts out annually for people that are in sales, revenue management, digital marketing. So I actually grew up in revenue management in the industry and was over sales and marketing, and then ultimately then was in M&A, and then ended up being in asset management, and ultimately operations management company and CEO. But I spent a lot of time in revenue management, and I won that award when I was at Interstate, and I was a VP of sales and revenue there. And so it's an annual award given to 25 people across the country. It's hospitality centric, and you know, you effectively have to work in sales, marketing, distribution, or revenue management to qualify. And I was, you know, I was put forth by a peer and won that. So that was a really cool experience. You go to Times Square and you're at the marquee and given a big award in a tuxedo. So it was a cool event.
Nice. I think everything was great until they said you had to wear a tuxedo, right? I'm sure you weren't too happy about that.
You know, I actually went out and bought one. You know, I'd never owned a tuxedo, and now I've got two, that original one, and I've subsequently bought one that fits a little better. So, anyways, I guess it's you know, I think I wear one once a year now. So
really, for just you have a
well, we have an annual awards ceremony that I wear hats to for our conference. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. Maybe one of these days I'll make it to the Oscars.
There we go. Eventually, only a matter of time. So it's funny you say you were in revenue management. So I got a question for you. This is something I just learned about. I couldn't believe this is happening with Expedia, with the whole transaction. So one thing that I'm sure you know about this way better than I do, I was made aware that apparently, let's say when someone makes a reservation on, and I don't mean Expedia, I mean like all their subsidiaries and like
all the OTAs. Is it apply to Booking Group too, or just them?
Whoever it probably does. I know specifically Expedia. It probably does with everybody, but let's say if someone makes a reservation, supposedly they're not required to actually like they can make a reservation with a debit card that has 30 cents on it, apparently. So if let's say that guy made a reservation for a week, that week is going to cost him $1,000. So whatever they charge, 15% fee, so $150. The guy doesn't show up, so the hotel gets zero revenue, but you're still charged the fee. And supposedly a lot of other hotels don't notice, and they're paying money that is like stupid. It's like it does, you know. Is that a real? I've confirmed this with other people. Like this is actually a thing. It's insane. Like I don't understand, you know.
Well, I don't know. I'd have to check. So it would only happen with Expedia and Booking Group. So Expedia's got two models: merchant model, where the customer prepays, they're the merchant of record, and then they pay a net amount to the hotel. So it wouldn't happen in that situation. They then have what's called a hotel collect model, where the customer makes a reservation, the customer pays at the point of checkout, the merchant of record is the hotel, and then the hotel pays them back a commission on the gross amount. So that's what you're referring to. That's actually Booking Group's entire model, is they only have a commissionable model. They don't have a merchant model like Expedia and several of them. It would apply to part of Expedia and part of Booking. I don't know. You know, we do reconciliations and make sure that or try to make sure we're not paying them back commission on non-consumable bookings. But I could see that, maybe I'm actually going to make a note here and make sure I'm checking with my head of revenue and accounting that we're not paying for commissions.
All right.
News to me. Now, I know they have a huge problem where it's false credit cards. We hold the reservation.
Everybody has that issue. Yeah.
And that's a bigger issue with booking, quite frankly. It's been a big issue in New York and, false reservations. And so what we've worked out is a pre-authorization where you go through and pre-authorize credit card. If it's declined, you try to contact the guest. If they don't respond, you cancel out the reservation.
Wow. Okay.
And so we've done a lot of that in our top 10. It's mostly in top 10 cities, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Miami, that kind of thing. It doesn't seem to bleed too much into tertiary markets, but I knew about that issue, and that's been a problem for years.
Yeah.
I'll take this away. Learn something new every day. I hope we have a good night audit reconciliation, but I'm not going to sit here and say now maybe it's happening at a few hotels.
Anything you'd like to end off on, or?
I think one of the things that doesn't get talked about that much, Max, is what's going to be the psychological impact to our morale hit to the industry. This is like going to war. And even for the activists, we talk a lot about the people out on unemployment, but what about the people that are active, that work 6 days a week, 14 days, had COVID guests, had COVID associates, are worried about their own health possibly? I'm starting to see the fallout, and we're actually in our medical benefit open enrollment period, and we've added a good bit of mental health. I actually looked at categories of claims over the last 6 months because I wanted to see what COVID's doing to our medical, and our mental health claims are actually double.
Wow.
Last year. And I'd like to hear more leaders talk about what are they doing. We partner with Health Check 360 and added a stress management, has an app looking at some of the stress management, psychology consultation stuff that you can do for a fee. And I'm really concerned about, what this has done to morale and the mental state and the amount of stress. You hear about it straining personal relationships, right, and straining businesses and their balance sheets. But what about the impact on the active associate and the mentality? And it's not just the hotel industry. Think about if you work in cruise or you work in restaurant. So I think we're going to be dealing with this for a period of time, and there needs to be more thought around how we're going to not just get people back to work, but address
more to it.
Back to the active associate and, quite frankly, to the associate coming back. And so that's something we're going to be dealing with for next couple of years. And, I really hear very little talk of that.
You're 100% right. This is the first time I've heard of it. And not just hospitality, I think everywhere. I know Amazon's put in something, but they have their own issues. But
I think a few businesses, you saw some corporations with 9/11. Particularly ones based in New York, do some stuff. This is far-reaching and worse than 9/11. No offense. That was terrorism, and that's horrific. But
right.
We've had far more deaths. We've had far more business impact.
No one knows what's going on. Nobody knows. Even though
that's right, and the mental impact is sometimes hidden and then bubbles up. So I'd be curious to see some large CEOs speak out about what are they doing around mental health for their teams beyond just, hey, we're giving them the flexibility to work from home. We're not forcing them to travel. I think that's just a starting point. It's how do you address the impact on this that's widespread. And by the way, I hate the term social distancing. Humans are social. We should be saying physical distancing.
That's fine.
Social distance is the worst definition. It means don't be social. Humans are social animals.
Oh my gosh.
Travel is social, so it's the worst thing. And let's stop saying work from home, work remote. Who's to say you can't go stay in a hotel and work from there? So I think some of the semantics are terrible. But hey, I'm not running the country.
That's right. That's actually hilarious. I'll try to pass that message out.
Physical distance, not social. It's the dumbest term invented.
Right. Yeah. With the whole hotel, I don't see what the problem is with opening a hotel, because as long as you're obviously just staying in your room or something, not like congregating, because like auto trains, you could actually buy a room on a train. You're traveling, you're in your own separate room though. It's like a hotel essentially that's moving.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, hotel rooms have never been cleaner. So
yeah.
Well, it's great spending time with you, Max, and I look forward to seeing how it comes out on the other side.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I am Sloan Dean, and you're watching Max on TV.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, please click like down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want to ensure that you never miss any other interviews that we're going to do, please hit the subscribe button down below as well. We've got a lot of really unique interviews coming down the pipeline here at Max TV. That's for now. Checking off here. Hope you guys have a great day.